Husband abandoned me during cancer treatment. 4 years later he wanted me back, not knowing I was cancer-free and living with the ex he was always jealous of. 5 years ago, I got married to my ex-husband Jerry, and about a year later, he left me during one of the worst phases of my life. Back then, both of us were 25. We had been dating for about 3 years after college, and then we got married because it seemed like the most obvious next step since we were both happy with each other. We had been married for about 4 months, when all of a sudden, I was diagnosed with stage 2 cervical cancer. There had been signs for a couple of months, but we had just chalked it up to general exhaustion and minor illnesses. When things started getting worse, we had to take my condition seriously, and that's when I was diagnosed. After that, I was in and out of the hospital on a regular basis, and for the first couple of months, Jerry was extremely helpful. He would take great care of me, he would handle all the medical reports, and keep in touch with the doctors. I felt like I didn't have to worry about anything at all, and even when I started chemotherapy and I started losing my hair, he shaved his head in solidarity with me. In short, he was literally perfect. But then, he started losing faith when I didn't get better after almost 6 months had passed, and I had undergone several rounds of treatment. I was not showing any sign of progress, and slowly, but steadily, I was getting worse. He started distancing himself from me, and even when I would try to get him to talk to me, he would just shut me out. I was already going through a lot, and him behaving like that with me, I felt like I was being rejected by him, and I couldn't take that. So I started picking fights with him, just to get his attention, and that seemed to work for a while, but then, he moved even further away from me emotionally. Finally, about 2 weeks before our 1-year wedding anniversary, I woke up one day to find him gone, and all he had left for me was a note on our bedside table, telling me not to go looking for him because he did not want to be found. I thought he was playing a prank on me or something, so I tried to call him and I sent him several messages, but none of them went through. After a couple of minutes, I realized that he had blocked me. Not just my phone number, but he had also blocked me on social media. So I started panicking, and I called my in-laws, and they told me that they knew nothing of this and said that they would get back to me as soon as possible, but they never did. I told my parents about it, and they moved in with me so they could take care of me in his absence, which we assumed would be just for a couple of days. Unfortunately, he just never came back, and after he disappeared, I tried my best to look for him, but I was never able to find him again. He was just gone for good, and it took me a really long time to recover from that emotionally, and I was incredibly depressed for a long time afterwards. I tried getting in touch with my in-laws several times after his disappearance from my life, but after that first phone call, they never responded to me until a month later. They visited me, but they were acting very cold and weird, and later on, they disclosed that they were only here because they needed to serve me with divorce papers. I was devastated, and I realized that they had been in touch with Jerry, but they refused to let on anything else. I was told that he wanted nothing to do with me anymore and that he was really sorry about this, but it had to end this way because he couldn't just waste his life with me anymore. I was really hurt because I could tell that the only reason he left was because I had cancer and he didn't want to take care of me anymore. It's not like I didn't understand what he was going through. It must have been tough on him, but the least he could have done was have a conversation with me. I think after 3 years of being together, and 1 year of marriage, that's the least that we owe each other. One honest and transparent conversation about our feelings, but he didn't think that he owed me even that, and that's why he left without a word. It took me a while to come to terms with it emotionally, but after his parents served me with the divorce papers, I signed off on it without any drama. It was already pretty obvious to me that there was nothing left to fight for in this relationship anymore, so it was better to just let it go in a dignified way. I obviously did have a lawyer go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, but in all honesty, his terms were pretty fair. Besides, in 1 year of marriage, we didn't really have any joint assets and neither of us wanted to drag this thing out, so after getting done with the waiting period, we finalized our divorce without even coming face to face with each other. Everything that I had to communicate with him, my lawyer spoke to his parents and lawyer about it, and that was it. And especially since this was an uncontested divorce, there was no need for us to meet each other either. That was it. After that, I did not hear from my in-laws either, and even though I was completely shattered, I knew that I had to keep going somehow. My condition had started worsening because of the heartbreak that I had gone through, and even though my parents were trying to be strong for me, I could tell that it was hard for them to see me like this. For their sake, I knew that I couldn't just give up on my life and go, even though it probably would have been easy for me back then. Anyway, I decided that I was going to fight for my life, and I don't know if it was a mental thing or if the treatment started working, but somehow, I managed to make it through. I'm doing fine right now, and for the past 3 months, I've been cancer-free. It wasn't easy for me at all, and for the past 4 years, all I've done is try to be thankful for my life. Part of that gratitude meant that I was ready to give myself a second chance at love. And that's why I agreed to let my ex-boyfriend move in with me 6 months ago. Some background information about me and my ex: he and I met in college and dated for 2 years but parted ways shortly after graduation because we wanted different things from life. My ex, let's call him Andy, and I were part of a larger circle. And that's actually also how I knew Jerry, since he was part of the same circle. After we graduated from college, we didn't exactly keep in touch, but a couple of months after Andy and I broke up, Jerry reached out to me and we started talking. We became friends, and within a few months, he confessed to me and told me that even when we were in college, he had always had feelings for me, but never acted upon it because I was with Andy. Now that we had broken up, though, he wanted to ask me out, and after a couple of months, I finally said yes. So that's how we ended up together. But even after we got serious about our relationship, Jerry always seemed to be a bit insecure about Andy, and so, even though I had been friends with Andy after our breakup, I ended up slowly phasing him out of my life and eventually blocking him altogether because I knew that Jerry didn't feel comfortable with Andy. Our common friends told me that Andy had been very disappointed that I had ghosted him and blocked him after I got with Jerry, but honestly, there was nothing else that I could do, and at the time, Jerry was more important to me than anyone else because I was very serious about him. Eventually, I obviously ended up marrying Jerry and forgot about Andy altogether. But then, we ended up getting divorced, and even though I never posted about it on social media or went public with it, I did tell a few friends of mine, and I'm guessing that's how Andy found out about our divorce and my diagnosis. So 5 months after my divorce was finalized, Andy reached out to me via email. He told me that he was really sorry about whatever I was going through, both the divorce and the cancer. He also said that he would really like to be friends again, but he would understand if I didn't feel comfortable with it. He was just very sweet in that email, and he ended by saying that he wanted me to know that he would always be here for me if I ever wanted somebody to talk to. However, back then, I was still reeling from the shock of Jerry leaving me, so I didn't respond to it for 10 months. I did think about that email from time to time, and I even thought about responding, but I couldn't bring myself to actually do it until 10 months later, when I had finally made my peace with the fact that Jerry had left and he was not coming back. And I had told a few of my friends about it, and they had insisted that I at least talk to him, in a friendly capacity. So that's exactly what I did, and I really didn't have any intention of getting back together with him or whatever. I just wanted to clear the air between the two of us because he was obviously making an effort to do the same. I responded to him in a completely platonic capacity, and that's how we got to talking eventually. We went back to being really good friends, and it was nice to have somebody to talk to on a regular basis, especially since Andy really understands me. More than anybody else, to be honest. And I did have my other friends, but with him, I'd always had something special, and talking to him made me happy. My parents also noticed that and encouraged me to keep talking to him, even if we were just friends. For a few months, we would only speak online, and then, he started visiting me at home. Slowly, but surely, we started getting closer again, and even though I was not ready to get back with him or anything of the sort, he did not give up on me. Last year, he finally told me that he had never really fallen out of love with me, and getting to know that I had started dating Jerry had been a huge heartbreak for him, but knowing that I was happy was enough for him to stay away from both of us. But now that Jerry was gone and we had become friends again, he felt like he had to tell me the truth, that he loved me and he didn't expect me to get back with him, but he just needed to get it off his chest. I appreciated his honesty, but I was very confused because it had been 3 years since my divorce, and I always felt uneasy thinking about Jerry and our past together because we never really got any closure. So I was very conflicted about whether I should try to move on or not, even though I really liked Andy, and honestly, I was pretty sure that I loved him back now, even more than I had before. My parents and friends talked to me and reminded me that it had been 3 whole years since my divorce, and if Jerry hadn't come back by now, it meant that he never cared about me and never would. So I needed to give myself a second chance, especially since I was getting better health-wise. Having fought for my life once, I knew that I needed to value whatever I have at the moment because there's no telling what might happen in the future. They convinced me to stop living in the past and give Andy a chance, so a couple of weeks after his confession, I decided to get back with him. And then, after a few months of being back together, he told me that he wanted to be the one to take care of me. He said he wanted to move in with me, and after giving it some thought, my parents, and I decided that since he already spent most of his time with me at my house, it would be better for him to just move in here. So I agreed to let him move in. Since then, we have been staying together. It's been great. I love having him around, and a couple of weeks after he moved in, once he was familiar with my routine, my parents moved out. They still visit me on a regular basis, obviously, but they finally have some time for themselves as well, and I guess they really appreciate it. I'm not ready for a second marriage as of now, but Andy and I have discussed the idea, and maybe in some time, we will think about getting married. However, for the past couple of months, I've just really been happy that I'm cancer-free and living with Andy, who really loves me, and I really love him too. Everything was just perfect until earlier this week when Jerry reached out to me. He had finally unblocked me everywhere and had sent me a message on Facebook, telling me that he had realized that he had treated me really badly and I didn't deserve that. Of course, it was not in my control that I had been diagnosed with cancer and I was not responding well to the treatment, but he was getting frustrated and did the cowardly thing and decided to just take off without even discussing it with me. He said that he owed me some closure and honestly, more than anything, he wanted to get back together with me because, in the past 4 years, all he had done was miss me terribly. He said that he was ready to give our marriage a second chance and if things go back to how they were, even if that meant that he was going to have to take care of me for the rest of his life. He said that he was ready to do it all, and I decided to ask him to visit me, but not for the reasons that he believed. And here is where I might have been in the because my intentions were very obvious. I was trying to hurt him. I hadn't posted about my diagnosis or my recovery anywhere, only my family and close friends knew that I was fine right now. So he had obviously still assumed that I was struggling with cancer, and after taking some time off for 4 years, he decided to finally come back to me. It was so insulting that he had believed that I was going to take him back after how he had treated me and pretended like I wasn't even a part of his life for the past 4 years. I was furious when I had read that message because it was clear that he actually genuinely believed that I was just going to take him back, no questions asked. He hadn't even bothered to explain to me what he had been doing for the past 4 years, that's how confident he seemed. I was very upset about it, so I decided that I was going to teach him a lesson. So I invited him home, just so that I could show him how my new life was. He had no idea that I was staying with Andy because I've never been one to go public with my relationships. I only even posted about Jerry online when I got married. So right now, very few people know about my relationship with Andy and obviously, none of these people have been in touch with Jerry. That's why, a couple of days ago, when Jerry showed up at my house with flowers and chocolates, the first thing that I did after opening the door to him was call Andy to the door and tell Jerry that while I really appreciated his apology, the flowers, and the chocolates, I had moved on with my life, and I did not want him back. He immediately started losing it because obviously, Andy was the one person he was extremely insecure about, and had always been. He started freaking out at me, telling me that I had betrayed him and stuff, and even accused me of cheating on him. I don't understand how it counts as cheating if I hadn't even been with him at the time that I started dating Andy again, but anyway, I didn't care about his reaction because all I had wanted to do was give him a shock and I had succeeded in doing that. So while he was having a mental breakdown on my porch, I decided to shut the door on Andy and I went back to watching TV. For the record, I hadn't told Andy about it, but he didn't really have a problem with what I had done. However, my parents and my friends thought that there was no reason for me to do this. I could have just let it go because this was me just inviting toxicity into my life again. And if I'm being honest, I don't exactly think that they were wrong. Because after he left that day, my in-laws haven't stopped trying to contact me because they think that I have been completely heartless. They said that if I had moved on already, then I shouldn't have agreed to invite their son over to my house and give him false hopes because he had actually been feeling sorry about everything that he had done and wanted to fix things with me, which is why he had taken the effort to reach out to me and come to visit me. They are accusing me of trying to ruin his mental health on purpose, and they even have the audacity to suspect me of having had an affair with Andy all along, even though they know for a fact that for the past 4 years, I had nothing on my mind apart from getting better. And before we got married, I had blocked Andy out of my life altogether just for Jerry. So I don't understand how they have the audacity to accuse me of having had an affair with him. Anyway, they are trying to make me out to be the villain and are acting as if their son was completely innocent in this whole situation. And like I said, my parents and friends are already against this. They have told me that what I did was very unnecessary. They can understand that I felt the need to get back at him, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that it was kind of petty. They're not exactly making a big deal out of it, but they have spoken their mind and I feel kind of guilty about what I did. I could have avoided all the drama if I had just not responded to him at all and I knew that I had been petty, but now I feel bad. However, I still don't think that I need to apologize to him or whatever because I don't think that it's such a big deal. I definitely do not think that it's as big a deal as his parents are making it out to be, especially considering the fact that he had literally left me while I was fighting for my life and had gone MIA for the next 4 years, not even showing up for our divorce. His parents also hadn't tried to be apologetic for it, so I don't understand why I'm expected to be forgiving and just let everything go, especially when my in-laws know how their son had treated me back then. Anyway, Ida for inviting my ex-husband home just so that I can show off my new life? Update 1. Hi. So thank you so much for all the comments on my post, it was all really helpful. First things first, I did speak to my parents and my friends about why I did what I did. I don't deny the fact that I was petty and I definitely don't deny the fact that it was completely unnecessary. I could have totally avoided all the drama by just not responding to him, but I felt like I needed to get some closure. I didn't think things through, I made the decision in the heat of the moment, so it was probably not the best way to deal with it, but I don't have any regrets about it either. They didn't have much to say, we just decided not to talk about it because it really wasn't worth it. And it wasn't exactly as bad as you guys think. I guess I might not have been able to communicate properly in the post or something. But just to be clear, my parents and my friends were not insisting that I apologize to my ex or whatever. They had just told me that they didn't exactly agree with what I had done and they had left it at that. They hadn't tried to guilt trip me like my in-laws were doing. And now that we have spoken about it, we have decided that we are just going to agree to disagree. It's really not a big deal for them and nothing in our relationship has changed, so we are fine. The only problem that I'm dealing with right now are my in-laws because they are very upset with what I did. They think that I have emotionally tortured their son by inviting him over and they think that I owe him a huge apology. I'm not even joking, they have sent me several emails, telling me that I need to apologize to him in person and that I need to clarify that I didn't have anything to do with Andy while we were together because apparently, he is completely broken down. I don't understand why my in-laws expect so much of me, especially since we haven't had much of a relationship ever since the divorce. They knew that what their son was talking to me was incredibly wrong and yet, they had been on his side and had helped him hide from me during the divorce. I'm not completely blaming them, but they were a huge part of the reason why I was never able to get any sort of emotional closure from Jerry while we were separating. So how come it was back then but now, since it's Jerry's mental health at risk, all of a sudden, I need to talk to him and give him an explanation for everything. He didn't think that he owed it to me back then, neither did his parents, so I'm just playing by the same rulebook now. Update 2. So it's been 3 days since my last update and I have been having no problems, but of course, that probably did not sit well with Jerry and his parents. Andy and I work from home, but I guess they didn't know that. They probably assumed that Andy wouldn't be at home if they showed up in the morning. Jerry and his parents visited me in the morning today and when I opened the door, they started demanding that I speak to Jerry and give him an explanation for everything that is going on because he's been very confused and they can't allow their son to go through this. I literally just wrote my eyes at them and I told them that I was not entertaining any of this BS. I did not owe them anything because Jerry didn't bother to give me an explanation when he left. And now, he could think whatever he wanted. I was not going to give him the satisfaction of getting an explanation or a reaction out of me. The only reason I had even opened the door was so that I could say this to their faces, and then I told them that if they did not clear out, I would call the cops. Then, Jerry started screaming at me, telling me that I was a horrible human being for what I had done. He called me petty and selfish, and then, he started cursing at me. When he started screaming, Andy had heard that, and he came to my side. He looked furious and I could tell that it was taking him all he had to keep himself from having a go at Jerry, and I really didn't want to do that, so I took my phone out, and I told Jerry and his parents that they had to leave or I really would call the cops. After bickering with me for a couple of seconds, they finally left because I had started dialing, even though they did not let go of the opportunity to curse at me some more. That did not affect me, though, even though it really made Andy mad and he cursed right back at them. But finally, they left and luckily, Andy told me that he had started recording everything on his phone, so even though there is hardly any video of any of this happening, he has a full audio recording of Jerry yelling at me and he didn't stop recording until they had left. Now that we have this, we know for a fact that the next time they show up, we will not only be pressing charges against them, but we will also be contacting our lawyers to file a restraining order against Jerry and his family. But I really hope that we don't have to go through all of that and that they leave me alone after this because I think I've said whatever I had to. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since Jerry and his parents showed up at my house. After that, they did not try to contact me anymore, and I was really relieved. I did speak to a couple of my friends about what had happened and they told me that what I had done was kind of petty and unnecessary. The way they were reacting right now was unhinged and they thought it would be wise for me to speak to a lawyer just in case. But I don't think I'm gonna need to do that because last night, I received an email from Jerry and he told me that he's moving to Europe with his parents and he's never going to bother me again. Apparently, after he left me, he moved to California for his new job. He had applied to it while he was still with me, but he couldn't bring himself to talk to me about it because he knew that it was impossible for me to relocate at a time like that. And neither did he want me to even consider it, but he would feel like a horrible human being for leaving me while I was struggling to live. So he admitted to being a coward and said that he left so that he could avoid any sort of confrontation. And even though he had had a couple of flings in the past 4 years, he could never get serious with anybody because he always regretted whatever had gone wrong with me. Recently, he had applied for a position in Europe and he had been back here for a couple of months so he could convince his parents to move with him and have a fresh start. That's why he had reached out to me as well, because now that he was back in town, he had at least wanted to apologize to me and give our relationship another shot. But after seeing me with Andy the other day, He realized that he had no right to intrude in our lives. Especially not after everything that he had put me through, and he definitely did not have the right to question me either, nor his parents. So now, he was doing the decent thing and leaving me alone. He said that he did not expect to be forgiven because all of this was coming too late and it was just too little. But he wanted to apologize for everything that he had done because he had been a coward, and he had no right to be throwing tantrums and sending his parents after me the way he did. He knew that Andy loved me, and I was happy with him, so he's going to stay away from me now, and I have to say, I'm really glad that he came to this conclusion. I did not reply to that email, but I did make Andy read it and my friends and parents read it as well. They think that this is good enough to put an end to whatever had been going on, and I agree. So now we can all finally collectively move on from this. This is good because, in a couple of months, I think I would like to get married to Andy and start a new chapter of my life with him. I guess I finally got the closure that I needed, and I'm finally ready to get married again, to start a family, and just live my life to the fullest once more.